In this part of the brand map, we are going to be going over the competition analysis. What is the competition analysis? The competition analysis is lining up your client next to the competition. It's a really healthy way to do a comparison and to make sure you're not kind of running into your competition and stepping on their ground, and you all have your own healthy space to grow. Now, the competition analysis is actually broken up into 3 different pages on the finalized brand carry-all. There's the basic analysis, competition notes, and competitor positioning map. I'm going to go into detail about each one of these pages so that you can do them with confidence. So here's the competition comparison, just a little bit of what it looks like. Here's the competition notes. You can see that this section of the brand carry-all is really graph oriented, and here's a competitor positioning map. So why is the competition analysis even important? What you're really doing in the competition analysis is you're giving your client the confidence and the space to grow without running into their competitors. Because without this, it's really hard to dictate and understand where your competitors are at and where you're at, and wondering whether or not that you're running into walls here. So you can kind of like push off of them so that you have the space to grow up. You've got your own little area of the industry that you can own and just rock it. So a few things about the competition analysis before we get started. It is really, really hard to do this part wrong. It doesn't really matter if your analysis is what the competition would want you to say, because remember, branding is what just people in general say about their brand. And so maybe you come off, you're looking at a brand and you're like, this looks really nice, professional, and clean to me. But they're really wanting to be rustic, farmy, and organic. Your say is what's coming off on social media as a third-party objective, and so that's what you need to go with. And your client can kind of always help you and direct you because they might know a little bit more behind the scenes of what's going on. So if they're like, oh yeah, this is correct, but can we add this in there? They'll help you a little bit too. So it really is just your perspective on how you see the brand. You don't have to know everything. Now, another thing is you want to keep this brief and straight to the point. You don't have to go into super ton of detail into what their competitors are doing. You just need to get enough to the point where you feel comfortable with where they're at, and you feel comfortable with where your client is at, lined up next to each other. You can kind of see where the differences are and the similarities. Let's start with the basic competition analysis. The basic competition analysis, you can see, is broken up into lots of different columns. And what I'll do is I'll put the name of the competition in the name category, and then I will just outline what their voice is, what the values are, and then the similarities and differences in each column. So let's talk about each of those columns. In the voice column, what I'm writing in that one is I'm just thinking, okay, what are my first impressions of this person? How do they come off? Am I feeling, this is really kind of like a gut feeling. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I saw this adjective or I saw this adjective, and I feel like it lines up pretty well. But it really is just kind of like a first initial gut feeling of how I feel that they're coming off, and I'll write like 2 or 3 adjectives in that column. Now next, with the values, after spending a few minutes on the platform, whether that's the website or the Instagram, Facebook, whatever platform it is, I ask myself, okay, what is obviously really important to this company? And it could be, they talk about light and airy photography a ton. That is something that's really important to them. It could just be friendliness. That could be something that's really important to them that I'm noticing. Next, you're going to go into what the similarities and differences are between your client and this competition person. Really basic similarities and differences. What do you see as the same? What do you see as the difference? Are there any gaps between that you feel like you could capitalize on as well? Next, let's go into the competition notes. Now, the competition notes is really, really basic. It's pretty much just anything that you noted that was interesting to you, that you wanted to take note of. Doesn't quite fit into the basic analysis. This is just kind of like my random thoughts about each competition and where they stand at. So here's a few things that you might want to include into your note category. What were things that you noticed the competition doing really well? What are some things that you noticed the competition not doing very well and that you could probably capitalize on a little bit more? Are there things in the brand that just don't go together? Sometimes I see things, I'm like, I'm seeing them tell me this, but I'm seeing this type of imagery, and this type of aesthetic, and these aren't matching up, so I'm not sure which one of these to believe or what's going on. And I note that confliction in the notes. Is there anything that you would possibly do different? Now, like, this isn't like you bagging on their competition, but you're like, hey, I noticed that this was really confusing and we could capitalize on that a little bit more and do that differently in so and so way. Any trends or patterns that you can detect. If you start seeing a pattern within the competitors, or you start seeing just a pattern within one competitor, put that in the notes. The last part of the competition analysis is the competitor positioning map. Now, the competitor positioning map, this is it kind of filled out. I put in just not random, but well-known automobile brands. It's hard to understand what this is without seeing it in action. And once you see it in action, you're like, oh, I can see what's going on here. So you can see here on one axis, I've got the high price and then the low price. And then on the other one, I've got low performance and high performance. And so what I'm really doing is I'm just mapping out all the competitors and people in that industry based on those two sets. Where are they at as far as high price, low value, high value? And so you can kind of get a visual perspective of where you are at next to your competition. So your client can literally own the space that they are in and they feel confident in that. Let's talk about how you're going to create this. First, what you really need to do is you need to ask yourself, what are the boundaries that are meaningful to the client? Because what you're going to first be doing is those axes, those 4 different points, you need to decide what it is you're going to be measuring and basing the competition off of. Now, price is usually one of the boundaries that I like to use just because it's really easy, it's really simple. Almost everyone has a price differentiation, and it's a huge part into how someone positions themselves is what they're priced at. So price is almost always one of them. Another thing that you could do is aesthetics, quality, special features, durability, types of services, ease of use, voice. Those could be some others. What you really want to look for in the other section, because again, price is something you almost always want to do. But in the other section, you got to ask yourself, okay, what's really relevant to the customer persona here? When they're going to be making a decision, what are they going to be looking for? Are they going to be looking for voice? Are they going to be looking for durability? What's a deciding factor? And what's something that really matters to my brand and the client? Okay, next, once you decide what the boundaries are that you're going to be measuring the competitors at, you need to plot the positions of the competitors. And this is really simple, easy to the point. I feel like I don't have to tell you how to do this, but really what you're just going to do is say, I can see them here, I can see them here, and you're going to put the names on the map. So what if some of the competitors are really hard to read? I've had this happen a few times in my own business where I go to their website and their social media and I'm like, this is so vague, this has not been branded well, I don't even know what this client stands for, like they just look like everybody else, and okay, what am I supposed to do with this? And I've even had competitors where they don't have websites, so I'm like, I literally don't know. What I do is I just put that in the notes. It's okay to say unknown, or it's okay to say in the brand messaging, like, they were really vague, and so I wasn't able to really understand X, Y, and Z. And your client can be like, yeah, you're right, they are really vague. Or they can be like, yeah, this is kind of what I think they're trying to go for. And you can then collaborate because they're going to know a little bit more behind the scenes. But it's okay to say that you don't know. Okay, let's do a quick overview of the competition analysis. What it includes is the basic analysis, which is where you're just going to really be lining up your competition side by side and talking about the voice, the values, and the similarities and differences. You're going to be doing the competition notes, which is basically a chart for putting everything in that doesn't fit into the basic analysis into a chart and just getting it on record. The next part is the competitor positioning map, which is where your client is really going to be able to see where they stand next to their competitors in a visual and easy to read way.